this one's claiming that science has buried God. Let's see what they say.
To start off with a thought experiment, imagine you're a hominid on the plains of Africa 3.5 million years ago. You're a tiny little Australopithecine afarensis, little brain. Your name is Lucy. And you hear a rustle in the grass. Is it a dangerous predator, or is it just the wind? If you think that the rustle in the grass is a dangerous predator, and it turns out it's just the wind, you've made a type 1 error in cognition. You've a false positive. You thought the wind was connected to something and it wasn't. A was connected to B and it wasn't. So that's a false positive, but that's relatively harmless. But if you think that the rustle in the grass is just the wind and it turns out it's a dangerous predator, you're lunch. Congratulations, you've just been given a Darwin Award for taking yourself out of the gene pool early before reproducing. And we are the descendants of those who are most likely to make type 1 errors, false positives, versus type 2 errors, false negatives. That is to say, why can't you just stay in the grass and collect enough data to get the answer right? And the answer is that predators don't wait around for prey animals to collect more data. That's why they stalk and sneak up on their prey animals, so they can't get enough data. So we evolved the propensity to make snap decisions and make one kind of error more likely than another kind of error. And that kind of error, that false positive, that's superstition. That's magical thinking. That's assuming A is connected to B. It's a true pattern and it isn't, and you're wrong.
He assumes evolution is the answer key. We've already talked about evolution several times and how stupid it is. So he's starting on a false, stupid assumption. We all know it to just not be accurate. Knowing that evolution isn't a thing, we can then look at true brain chemistry, which is that we have this pattern. Why we have this pattern? There's lots of different guesses. My opinion on it is that we had a creator who created us with this, possibly for the same reason, but so we can take quick judgments and determine what we need to and move on in life.
That's the basis of finding false patterns like God's. Now, what's the difference between the wind and a dangerous predator? The wind is an inanimate force. A dangerous predator is an intentional agent. And his intention is to eat me, and that can't be good. So what we also do, in addition to finding these meaningful patterns, is infuse in them agency. That is, it's alive, it's real, it has intention, and its intention is not good, so I better assume it's real. And this is the basis of animism and spiritism and polytheism and monotheism and the belief in angels and aliens and demons and spirits and poltergeists and gods. Gods are invisible agents who run the world, who control things, who create these patterns, who are these patterns that we use to explain things. All cultures everywhere in the world have created God beliefs. Gods with these intentional, that are intentional agents.
So that's his theory to why we have so many gods. My theory to why we have so many gods is because the devil hates God and wants many people to be led away. So what does he do? He distracts people. If you can't delete the message, what you could do is you could drop 1 million messages into the same bucket and then have fun finding the right one.
Human civilization began by putting purpose and intelligent purpose behind gods associated with the sun, the moon, the planets, the wind, the earth, the oceans. It's been, by one estimate, over 1,000 different gods throughout human history. Mars, God of War, Poseidon, Thor, all the rest. And the really important thing is that all of you are now atheists regarding those gods. Just the only difference is it's just one that we may disagree about. But 999, we all agree, have been thrown out. And the reason they've been thrown out is they've been buried by the rise of our physical understanding. Science works. And the fact that
other than one of them hasn't been buried by our physical understanding. All but one. And that's the only one that's sort of still relevant.
Science works has buried the gods of the wind and the sun and the moon. Farmers now, as I was just saying, when it doesn't rain, they don't pray for rain anymore. They go see a meteorologist. And that's a good thing. In the process, the human condition has improved immensely, and it will continue to improve as science continues to bury the one remaining God. The point is that our current understanding of nature has changed. We've learned things. It's changed and developed since the claims were made by Iron Age peasants who didn't even know the Earth orbited the sun. And therefore, it's natural that science is inconsistent with those claims based on ignorance. And we shouldn't revere those ancient claims as sacred. They're ignorant.
He says they're ignorant. But then you look in the Bible, and I mentioned this one before, you see these, and the Bible mentions these hot springs that came up from the depths of the ocean. We didn't know about that till recently. There are several things in the Bible that we didn't know about till recently in science. As we discover more scientific facts, we're starting to realize that the Bible is actually more accurate than we even thought.
And the other thing that's important in this extra God is there's nothing special about Jesus that's any different than the other gods or any other fictional hero.
He rose from the dead. How is that not special? Look at all the other gods. They died. Jesus never, he died and he came back. He's the only living God.
Heroes for that matter. First of all, there's no empirical evidence that he was divine. None, not one iota in that sense.
What about all the eyewitnesses? They say there's no evidence. The eyewitnesses don't count.
He shares it with every other god that's ever been proposed. The myths associated with Jesus are associated with all the other myths, and the Bible. The flood myth, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was written well before the Bible, exactly the same. The hero of the Bible was
Just because they're the first one doesn't mean that they're the most accurate one. And several flood myths, if anything, prove a flood. If there are several people all over the world that say, oh yeah, there was this massive amount of water that covered the earth and only a few people survived in a boat. Well, wait a minute, if you're telling a story and I'm telling a story and so-and-so's telling a story, even if we get it slightly wrong, wouldn't that mean that the story has a higher chance of being real? If people all over the world are saying there was a flood, maybe there was a flood.
Was asked to create an ark and put all the species 2 by 2 on 7 levels. Same thing. Virgin birth, nothing special about Jesus. Well, look at all these. They're all supposed to have been born of virgins. The whole story, in fact, take Dionysus, the Greek god of wine, versus Jesus. It's exactly the same. They were both born from a virgin mother. They were fathered by the King of Heaven. They returned from the dead. They transformed water into wine. In fact, they, talked about eating and drinking the flesh and blood of the Creator.
As I said, sometimes what they do is they mix up the stories, okay? And they change it a little bit, and then so-and-so has this myth of a story, so-and-so has this myth of a story, and then you realize because several people have these stories, it's very possible that somewhere in there is a truth, that someone existed like that. Now, as I also said, the devil likes to throw people into this chaos because there's the message of the Bible and then there's the message of all these other gods, and it's exactly what they're doing is they're saying, look at all these other ones we've disproven and thrown away, therefore we can assume this one's trash too. That's illogical.
They were taken as a liberator of mankind. That story has been told over and over again, and this is just one of the most recent renderings. Nothing special. And the resurrection is nothing special. The myth of resurrection has been around since Osiris. Osiris.
The myth. Many scholars will tell you that this is not a myth. It's historical evidence. We have the records. We have some artifacts. We could look at all of the places. Virtually everybody agrees that the crucifixion happened. That Jesus was a real person. He's going off on this tangent. Even if you want to refute the miracles, the historians will tell you Jesus definitely existed, whether you like it or not.
Osiris was one of the major Egyptian gods, and it used to be just the kings in Egypt would be resurrected when Osiris was resurrected. But eventually, in the New Kingdom, anyone could be resurrected with Osiris. I was going to say with Jesus, but it doesn't matter. If they follow the correct religious rituals, the same nonsense. Now, the point is that the fact that these beliefs are in fact being destroyed is related to the fact that the belief depends upon not just time, not just history, and the fact is, frankly, that in the Western world at least, the number of people who have religious affiliations monotonically going down. But it depends on where you live. If you're born in the U.S., you're religious, you believe in the Bible and Jesus. If you're born in India and you're religious, you might believe in Brahman and who's manifest through Gensha. If you're from the Islamic world, you think the Quran is the perfect word of God and Muhammad is the latest prophet. It's kind of interesting that your belief depends on where you're from. But what's great...
Not always. There are missionaries that go out and convince people of other things. There are lots of people who are raised in an atheistic home and they become Christian, vice versa. Your location does not necessarily determine your belief. Besides, whether or not you believe it because you're in a certain location doesn't make it true or not.
Is we live in a world where information is becoming more freely available. And because of that global access to information, we are seeing religion go down. Because people are learning that the myths and lies that they've been taught, when they learn about the rest of the world.
Religion is going down. I like to specifically focus on Christianity. I would not say it's due to more knowledge. Noah had to build an ark and get away from everybody because the religion went down to just him and his family. I mean, when I say religion, I mean Christianity. It's the same thing here. We humans corrupt. Now, the bad thing in this one is he's assuming people are just starting to open up Google and research and then are switching over to evolution and atheism, which is not happening. Some people, they do the research and they find out Christianity is the way to go.
As the world, that other people believe other myths and lies that are inconsistent with their myths and lies. And that's why we're seeing religion dying more and more. There's still many open questions. There's a lot we don't know about the universe, a lot more we don't know than we do. That's the wonder of science. That's why I'm a scientist. But it is intellectually lazy to just stop asking questions and stop looking for physical explanations and just say God did it.
We know God did it, but a lot of the time we like to know how God did it. There's a very big difference.
It's lazy. We have evidence, reason, logic, rationality, and empirical methods on our side, whereas their opponents have vague hopes and fears, and they're arguing in favor of emotion that's hanging on for its existence by mere shreds of emotional and ideological spaghetti, much like this type provided by the flying spaghetti monster, one of the many equally irrational gods which science provides no support for. But I first want to begin by clarifying the nature of the motion, because the motion isn't science disproves God, it's science refutes God. And that's very important because you can't disprove a notion that's basically vague and unfalsifiable. There's no way to disprove the notion that God didn't create all of us 15 seconds ago with the memories of the amusing comments we heard before that.
Technically, he's completely right. And that's when you start to get into like the Matrix and everything. And I'm just going to say from this point, if you want to go down that route, there's no argument to be had. We do have to go off of science and reasoning, which is what we have now. So, to those who want to hold that argument, I normally just shrug them off and say, there is nothing to argue there.
No way we can disprove that. Okay, and that's really important to recognize that those kind of unfalsifiable notions are unfalsifiable, as I say. But we can ask, is it rational to expect that that's likely? And tonight I want to emphasize that 500 years of science have demonstrated that God, that vague notion, is not likely. It's irrational to believe in God.
And that is completely false. And I made a video on this. I believe it is There a God is the title of it. You guys can check it out. Maybe we'll have a link to the video if my editor wants to put that in there. But yeah, it's science points to a God. It does everything but say there is no God.
Now, to refute God means refuting several claims. One, that are all based on faith, not evidence. One, that God is necessary. Two, that there is evidence for...
No, God is necessary, and that's actually proved by science. Okay, everything can't come from nothing. Everything has to come from something. If you also just look at the general understanding of reality, you see that there are patterns. Creations have creators. It's proven.
For God. And three, that belief is rational. Several claims. One, that are all based on faith, not evidence. One, that God is necessary. Two, that there is evidence for God.
There is treasure troves of evidence for God and Jesus if you want to treat them as two separate people.
And 3, that belief is rational. And the point is that
And that belief is very rational because of the previous 2 things he mentioned being completely opposite to what he said.
progress of science has shown over and over and over again that the answers to all those 3 questions are no, 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 no. Now, my own scientific field is cosmology, and that's the study of the origin and evolution of the universe as a whole, and it's where science...
I feel so sorry for this guy. He's wasted his entire life. This guy's study is in a theory that is stupid. Evolution's been proven wrong so many times. I proved it wrong in 8th grade. I proved it wrong independently when I was 7. For him to still be stuck in this fairy tale, come on, I figured this out when I was 7. Catch up to modern times.
Science and religion sort of confront each other, and creation myths have abounded throughout human history, and science confronts those creation myths. Our opponents, I'm pretty sure, are going to argue first that one aspect of science that supports perhaps the belief in God is this notion that the universe is apparently fine-tuned for life. I hear that a lot. And because it was fine-tuned so life could exist. That is a remarkable and, in fact, cosmic misunderstanding.
Okay, fine-tuned. If you had a guitar and it was tuned well, you would assume somebody tuned it. I'm going to leave it there.
Because it's the same kind of misunderstanding that led people to believe in special creation for life on Earth before Darwin. It looked like everything was designed for the environment in which it lived. But what Darwin showed...
Which is true. Creatures are genetically able to first adapt to their surroundings, yes, but they were designed to be able to adapt. They were designed to live in certain scenarios.
Showed us was that a simple proposition, namely that there's genetic variation among a population combined with natural selection, meant that you didn't need supernatural shenanigans. That in fact...
And he wants to hold Darwin so high. Darwin was a lazy slacker who never did anything in his life. His dad was tired of him, sent him out on a boat trip where he killed birds because he liked worms. And then pretty much stole somebody else's work and elaborated on it just a little bit and got famous. That's it. Never was educated, never was knowledgeable on almost anything. Took a stupid guess and ran with it.
All the diversity of life on Earth could arise from a single life form by natural law. And he didn't know, what he showed was it was plausible based on the evidence. He didn't know about DNA, he didn't know about the details of genetic replication, but he showed it was plausible. And as I'll say, that's where we're at now as far as the understanding of the universe is concerned.
As for atheism, atheism isn't a thing. It's just a lack of belief in God. That's it. Full stop. I'm also an...
Then why do so many people dedicate themselves to not believing in God? Entitle themselves not God believers. It's a little bit more. They actually have an atheist church, so yes, atheism.
An A Bigfootist. I'm an A UFOist. It's not a belief system. There's no set of tenets. This is what atheists believe. It's just what we don't believe. We just don't.
We don't title ourselves A UFOists. But they do title themselves atheists.
Don't believe in God, full stop, that's it. Now let's talk about something else. If you don't believe in God, but you believe in, say, civil rights, civil liberties, human rights, women's rights, gay rights, animal rights, you believe that people should be treated equally under the law, and so on and so forth, you're probably a humanist or a secular humanist or an Enlightenment humanist, but it's irrelevant. You can be a Christian and believe all those things. You can be an atheist and believe all those. It doesn't matter. So this is a complete non sequitur. This is not an argument for anything, because there is no atheist worldview. I think it's very unlikely that there is a God. You can't prove that there is nothing. You can't prove a negative. But just follow a thought experiment here for a second. Over the last, say, about 10,000 years, humans have created about 10,000 different religions and about 1,000 different...
10,000 years. Once again, they assume that the earth is that old. We don't have proof for an earth that old.
Different gods. What is the probability that Yahweh is the one true God and that Amun-Ra, Aphrodite, Apollo, Baal, Brahma, Ganesha, Isis, Mithras, Osiris, Shiva, Thor, Vishnu, Wotan, Zeus, and the other 986 gods are all false gods. So, like me,
It's not a random probability. If there was one true God and 1,000 false gods, okay, what is the probability that at least one of those will be the accurate God? That'd be 100%. What is the probability that any individual one would be that God? That'd be like, what, 1 in 1,000? So yeah, if you're just drawing at random, you get 1 in 1,000. But if you actually look at the science, you can get rid of those, get rid of some here. You can narrow it down to that one God, and then you're 100% accurate. And that is what Yahweh is.
the rest of you are all atheists. Some of us just go one God further.
Has science buried God suggests that
I'm seeing this argument several times. That there are so many gods, and all of them but this one are wrong, so let's just say that one's wrong too. And that's how they deceive you. Don't let yourself get fooled by that.
there's one God? There are lots of gods, and science has buried all of them.
Except one. Science buried all the false ones, and science upholds high the correct one. And they are too blind to see it because they don't want to see it. Forget who it was that said this, but they said the reason why we don't believe in God is because it goes against our sexual mores. I think it was Richard Dawkins. I'm not sure on that one. But pretty much, we don't believe in God because we don't like it. We don't like the idea of God. We want to be able to do whatever we want to do. And God says no. Anyways, if you're willing to embrace the harsh reality of life and not fall into the mistakes that everybody else does and believe what only you want to believe instead of fact, then feel free to subscribe. Comment down below what your favorite part was, or if you have any questions that you're really struggling with. I'd love to answer those for you. Until next time.